Hello everyone! In this video I will be making a snake plush, also known as the danger noodle. I will be making a rattlesnake version of this one here, but I'm going to do the Wyoming version since I live in Wyoming, so a Wyoming rattlesnake. This is a free pattern by Choly. I will put the link to download this free pattern in the video description so you can follow along. Let's get started. First, you're going to want to print and cut out the pattern pages. There's a few pieces that overlap to two pages, so you would use the diamond shapes to line up the pages and tape them together well before you cut them out. When you come across these triangle marker points, you want to cut a triangle the opposite way so that later on when you're sewing you know how to line them up better. You can set aside any pieces that you won't be needing. I put aside the hognose pieces and didn't even bother cutting them out. On this step, you'll be picking your colors of your fabric and laying out your pattern pieces onto the fabric. Use fabric-safe markers or chalk to trace them. Pay close attention to the direction of the nap and stretch. The pattern pieces will show you which way that should be going. Use your pattern notes on each piece to know how much of each and what color to cut. Make sure you trace all of the pieces with washable marker and cut out the pieces. I did this off camera. You can see I went with like a tan and brown color theme, but that's because of the Wyoming rattlesnake colors. You can pick whatever colors you'd like. If you're making the stripe version, you should clip or pin your pattern pieces to each section. This is very helpful in a later step when we sew them together. I also clipped my stripe pieces together, but that wasn't very necessary. The next step is to add face details by embroidery machine, hand sewing, or fusible webbing. I will be using an embroidery machine, but you can see the pattern directions from Choly for other options if you do not have an embroidery machine. Since we pre-cut the face, we want to sew the last stitch first when using the embroidery machine. Use sewing machine safe spray adhesive and the stitches to line up the pieces. Don't forget your top stabilizer, especially when using Minky. Stitch out the rest of the face in colors you would like. Once it's finished embroidering, remove jump threads, top and back stabilizer. Now we're going to sew the face pieces together. Be extra careful to line up the smile. Add a few base stitches on the forehead piece to the center above the nose. Line up one side of the forehead piece from the center to the back of the face piece. Pin it and clip in place. Make sure you go along with the curves. Make sure to sew from the center out, so that means from the nose to the back of the head. Repeat those steps with the second side of the forehead, sewing from the center out. Before moving on to the next step, you should check your seams around the eyes and the tip of the nose. I ended up getting too close to one of the eyes when I was sewing this seam, so I had to fix it. You can see me ripping the stitches out here and relaying it out to sew it again. It honestly looked fine, but I wanted to fix it so that it looked better. You can re-sew the tip of the nose if you need to, or if you just want to reinforce it like I did. Now we're going to sew the chin piece using the same methods as we did with the forehead. So we do a few base stitches in the center, line up one of the sides of the chin, and sew it from the center. You do want to be very careful around the mouth. So having the face facing up helps you be able to not sew over the face details. Repeat again with the second part of the chin, sewing from the center out. Before moving on, I suggest you check your seams for any holes or mistakes. Sew the head back pieces together, skipping over the half circle that is the neck opening. Turn both head pieces inside out and line up and pin or clip together. Take extra time to do this part because you can't just line up the seams. Sew all around the circle, moving the face out of the way as you go so you don't accidentally sew over it. Turn your head right side out through the neck hole and check the seams. Stuff the head with filling of your choice. This is out of order on her pattern, but I couldn't wait. I had to see what he looked like. If you're making the stripe version, now's a good time to lay out your sections in the order that they are, going section, stripe, section, stripe. And then stack them in the order so the next step is easier. Sew all of the segments and stripes together, using the order that you had stacked them in. Use the alignment points or triangles to help know how they are placed. So if there's one triangle, you would line it up with one triangle. If there's two triangles, you would line it up with two triangles. Keep sewing segment then stripe, segment then stripe, segment then stripe, etc. until you are done. This part did take me the longest, so I sped this section of the video up for you. Sew the two belly pieces together. You would also repeat this step if you were just doing the solid version. Line up, pin or clip the top and bottom body pieces together. We will need to leave 3 openings in the areas of the body and neck when we're sewing. I marked the openings with red clips. Sew around the whole body, skipping the neck and the marked openings. This is a pretty large piece, so make sure you keep checking your bobbin so you notice if it runs out. Luckily, I noticed pretty quickly that it ran out. Slow down to make the tight curve of the tail tip. This part gave me the most trouble. My thread kept breaking and the curve was kind of tight and it just was a mess, but we got through it. Make sure you trim and snip around the seam allowance, especially around the curves. It's finally time to turn the snake body. Using hemostats and the stuffing holes really help for this part. It does take a while though. Once you have it fully turned, you can start stuffing at the tail tip and work up to the neck. Hemostats are not required, but they do really make it a lot easier. While you're stuffing, take advantage of all those stuffing holes you left. Try to stuff evenly and not lumpy, so it's got a nice smooth feel to it. While I'm finishing stuffing this, I just wanted to remind you to like and subscribe to my channel. Add more stuffing to all the holes if needed, so there's no soft or dented in spots. Ladder stitch the stuffing holes closed on the body. Make sure to get all three. Ladder stitch the head on. Make sure to hold it in place as you go. This is a bit tricky, so take extra time on this. Add stuffing if needed before finishing the first round. This helps make sure that the head and the neck are stuffed well and not dented. After the first round, check to make sure the head is straight, then make 1 or 2 more rounds. If you're adding these to your snake, sew your rattle and tongue, leaving the bottom open for turning. Trim the seam allowance around the curves and the points without cutting your stitches. Turn the tongue and the rattle and start to stuff the rattle. This is where you would add the optional toy rattle. Just add a little stuffing in the tip, add the rattle, and then finish stuffing. Make sure you leave a hole in the stuffing for the tail to fit in. Start a clinch stitch around the opening of the rattle, but do not clinch it shut until you've placed it on the tail. Once you've placed it on the tail, clinch it shut and ladder stitch the rattle to the tail. Add marks to show where the rattle detail will be using a air erase marker or a washable marker. Clinch stitch around the rattle using the markings you made, pull tight and tie off. For a little tip, you can hide your starting knot in the seams of the rattle. Repeat the clinch stitch on all 3 markings around the rattle. If you did add a toy rattle, you might have to push it out of the way on this last one. Ladder stitch the tongue onto the center of the mouth. Remove the fuzzies left over from stuffing. I use just a pet hair remover on this. Here is our finished product. The shape of his head looks good. He can stretch out or curl up. I like how his head rests on his body. The belly seams look good. It's got a little fuzz on him, but I'll clean that. His cute little tongue and his adorable face. and of course his rattle. I'm just going to curl him into a little pillow. Thank you so much for watching.